This video explains the photo stamping feature which is available in RightBooth 7. Now I've created a standard photo capture event here, and if we look at these screens that are in there, we've got the start screen, which is what we're looking at the moment, the get ready screen, the countdown screen, which is 3 seconds, the take photo screen, the show photo screen, and I've set up this event to capture 3 photos. So you can see we've got 3 placeholders for the photos and 1 main placeholder for each of the photos as you're capturing around the loop, and the thank you screen. So what I want to do is to show you how you can actually add images and text to photos after they've been captured. So to do that, we need to go to the show photo screen. Now I'm going to edit this screen to put images and props on there that you can drag onto the photo after each one's taken. So the best way to do that is to really make this placeholder as big as you can, because you want to be dragging things onto it. So I'm going to move these out of the way down here. I'm going to probably get rid of this item just by clicking the bin tool. I'm now going to make this placeholder bigger. Let's make it that big. Now I'm leaving some space down this side and this side so that I can add objects that users can drag onto the photo. So the next thing to do is to add the items. So I'm going to add some images. Looking in the image library, I'm actually in the stars folder at the moment, so I'll take this one and just move it over here, size it. Now what I'm doing is I'm going to size the objects so that they're relatively the right size for the photo. So let's assume that that's the size that we want on the photo, so that's pretty good. So I'll leave that over there. Let's add another image. Fancy some balloons, so let's go to, I think they're in celebration. So let's add a few balloons. Let's add these 3. I'd say they're probably the right size for the photo, so again I'll just put these over here. Okay, let's have some emojis. Oops. So let's go for those 3. They're probably a bit small, so if I select them all one after another, so I click one, then I shift and click on another one, and shift click on the third one. I've got all 3 now, so I can size them all together. That's probably a better size. Let's have these over here. Okay, I'm going to add a text object or a label object. Let's change that to double click it. Let's go for happy birthday. Let's look at its properties. I'm going to give it a shadow. I'll change the colour to, let's say, a gradient. I'm going to go horizontal with it. Let's go from white to yellow. Okay, let's put that there. Just close these down again. In fact, I'll move these just out of the way over here. Now the thing I'm doing is to make sure that these objects are roughly the right size for the photo. So they're all looking about the right size to me. Right, I could add more text objects. I'll just leave it at that for now. So I've actually got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 props here. I'm going to add another label object which just asks the user to label or drag objects onto your photo. Put that up there. Right, so how do we make this work? Well, what you have to do is to give each of the objects that you want to add to the photo properties. So let me select them all one after another. So I hold the Shift key down and select all the objects that I want to be able to be dragged onto the photo. So as you can see, I've got all of them selected now. Let's have a look at properties. Now this is shared properties because we're actually going to be providing a property to each of the objects that are selected. So the first property that needs changing is can move. Now what that means is that when you play the event, all the objects that are selected at the moment will be able to be moved by the user, so they can be moved with the mouse or dragged with the finger if you're on a touch screen. Now this is an important one, stamp. Again, if we set them all to have the stamp property, then that means that when an object is moved over the photo, when the event moves on from this screen, the objects that are over the photo will be stamped onto the photo. And that's basically all you have to do. Okay, there's one more thing we need to do on this show photo screen. If I look at the properties for the screen itself, you can see that it's set to time out after 4 seconds. Now I don't want to do that because basically all that will happen at that point is that the user will only have 4 seconds in which to drag objects onto their photo. So I want to change this now, and I want to set this to never time out. So now how does the user move on from this screen? Well, what they have to do is to add the next button. Now it's getting a bit cluttered on here, but I'm only doing this so that you can see the process. I mean, obviously you need to arrange your screen in a much better way than this. But I've got a next button down here which will allow the user to move on after they've decorated their photo. So let's just have a quick recap. So I've got these objects here which can be dragged around, can move, and these objects here which can also be dragged around. In fact, I'm going to make these a little bit smaller, so I'll just shift click them all and size 1, and they will all size, and just put them into place a bit better. And this guy here. Okay, so I'm going to play the event now and let's see what happens. Don't forget, before you start playing anything, let's save this so we don't lose any changes. So I'm just going to click the save button. Right, let's try playing it. Okay, RightBooth is now playing the event. Let's see what happens. Click the mouse, get ready for the first photo, photo number 1. We're now onto the show photo screen, and as I said before, this will stay showing until the user has clicked on the next button to move on. So I can now decorate this photo with objects, drag these on. Let's just have these 2 for now. Click next. We're on to the second photo. Now notice that the objects have been put back to their starting positions, which is quite useful. So this time I'm going to drag the happy birthday on, maybe a couple of balloons. Click next. Third photo, photo number 3. That's 4, sorry, 3. Right, notice down here that the placeholders for the previous 2 photos have actually got the objects on them that I've dragged previously. So RightBooth is adding objects each time you go around the loop. Let's go next. And thank you. So that was 3 photos. Now a very important point is that on the show photo screen, I'm just going back into the editor actually and looking at the show photo screen, you can see that these objects do not overlap this object, and that's quite important. So their starting points need to be outside this area, otherwise they'll be added automatically by RightBooth. But that could be quite useful, so let me show you this example. Let's move the word happy birthday here, and this time I'm going to set its properties so that it can't be moved. Now What that means is that the happy birthday will be added to every single photo and the user won't be able to change that. So let's just show you that. Play it again, click the mouse, first photo. So it's showing it here. It's not down here yet, but when I go round to the next one, you will see that it's been automatically added to the first photo. There we go. Next photo. This is the final photo, number 3. As you can see, we're adding them down here. Click next. Thank you. And back to the start screen. So it's possible to automatically decorate your photos by adding the stamp property to the objects that you want to be added to your photos and making sure that those objects are actually positioned over the placeholder on the show photo screen. Let me just exit and show you the actual photos that have been captured. Click the event files button to show the photos that have been captured. As you can see, let's just go through them quickly. All the photos have been given the props. A few other things worth mentioning. The stamping feature is not just specific to images and label items. You can also add the stamping feature to things like the clock item and a video item or a web browser item. So for instance, if you had a playing video on the show photo screen and the user could drag it onto the photo, what would happen is that when the user moves on from the show photo screen, the frame that's currently playing on that video item would be stamped onto the photo. Similarly with a web browser, if you had a web browser on a screen and you dragged the web browser onto the photo, the contents of the web browser would be stamped onto the photo at the time that the user moves on. Another feature is that the stamping function can actually be applied to the webcam item. So here we've got a webcam. If I had objects on the start screen, I could drag them onto the webcam item, and if their stamp function was set, then the items would be stamped onto the photo when it's taken. So you could actually populate the photo prior to it being taken. And the final thing to mention is the stamping feature can be used with the drawing pad item. Now I'm not going to explain that in this video, but I'll cover it in another training video.